What's up guys, Matt Briers here from TRITAC, and today we have an interesting topic. We're doing wrestling versus Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, but really should be wrestling with Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. We're actually gonna look at some 2-on-1 controls, the Russian, and then using it for some wrestling-based takedowns, and then we're gonna add that similar concept, those 2-on-1 controls, to actually start breaking the arm and looking at some Japanese Jiu-Jitsu concepts. If you're new to this channel, one of our things that we like to do is integrate traditional arts like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu with modern concepts from wrestling and how they blend together for you to become a complete martial artist. Okay, first thing we're gonna look at is getting to a 2-on-1 control commonly called the Russian. So the best thing for, not the best way, one of the ways we like to drill to get into it is starting from a single collar tie. And when we're in that single collar tie, I have this cue or framework, pinch, shrug, catch. So I'm gonna pinch and start shrugging my arm. I'm also gonna drop this arm and align my forearm to his elbow. Then I think about throwing a left hook. I'm gonna spin my whole body. I spin you as I'm spinning. Okay. Now when I'm spinning my whole body, I'm gonna disconnect, catch his hand, and I wanna think about folding in to his forehead, and now we have our Russian grip, okay? From the Russian, it's very, very important that we keep our opponent moving. If I stop, it's easy for him to start battling out, creating some space and getting away. So, kazushi is a popular term in the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu martial arts. We're saying off-balancing effect. So when I get into my Russian, sure, we'll start it again. Boom, boom, boom. I'm using kazushi, moving to get him off balance. Let's back it up a little bit. So now, when I'm in the Russian, let's go for a wrestling-based attack. We're gonna attack the back. I'm gonna punch his hand across his hip, and then catch my other hand here. So we're moving, I punch, grab, and then I keep this connection, walk myself around his back, and I have a good strong gable grip. When I have that good strong gable grip, I'm now gonna look for actually a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu takedown called Tani Itoshi. So I'm gonna step, a little blind step from here, and then I'm gonna slide this leg out, and then glide right on top for mount control, or basically 3/4 mount. Let's look at that again. We're in a single collar tie, pinch, rub, catch, walk him in, punch that hip, and I keep him moving until I establish my dominant gable grip. Once I get my gable grip, you'll see that I'm cheated off the one hip. I have a good wide base, my head's resting in the center of his back. I take that blind step, sit, and then come on top for our mount, ground and pound, or just dominant position. All right, next takedown we're gonna look at is the fireman's carry, or in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Kote Gaeshi. I actually have Leon do this one. So we'll start from that single collar tie, he hits his Russian, boom. Now watch what happens. He's gonna wave this across, level change, go ahead and pocket my arm over here. Then he just slides in and hits his fireman's, and then chases up into Keiza or Keizer, Kote Gatame. Let's look at now the fireman's carry, or Kote Gaeshi in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, off that Russian. So we're back to that single collar tie. Leon's gonna hit his Russian entry. All right, now look what happens. He starts waving his arm around, level changes and pockets my arm. Nice, big, strong, basically an overhook control, slides in and hits his fireman's carry, and then slides right into Keizer Gatame. Let's do that again. Guys who are receiving this technique, be sure to bow your head and not just get face planted into the mat, which is unfortunately a common occurrence when I teach this technique. I gotta make sure that people do proper forward roll. So again, enters nice Russian, slides through, and then very nice. Okay, let's change things a little bit. Change the entry slightly, and now we'll get into Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Now, the big distinction between wrestling or sport-based arts and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, that with Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, it's all about breaking and finishing the fight. We're looking to get quick kills, end the fight as quickly as possible. It's more self-defense oriented than it is sport oriented, but of course there are similarities of both. We're gonna start in that single collar tie. Again, maybe you are in a clinch battle with someone, or you end up in this reference point. But the only thing that's gonna change now from our Russian entry is that instead of dropping this hand underneath, we're gonna keep it on top. So I have that same feeling, pinching and shrugging. And then I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna catch that arm. I'm gonna spin so you guys can see this. Let's look at this again. We're here. Instead of dropping the arm like we did on the Russian, we're gonna keep the arm over. In fact, this almost helps me a little bit where I start waving that shoulder, almost like I'm trying to elbow him in the face. And now I have this catch and grip like before, but what's really important is to see how I've latched his elbow in with my forearm. Now I'm gonna take this space with my leg and start elevating his hand as I start bringing my elbow down inside my thigh, and then this is obviously we call Waki Gatame, or basically an arm break. Boom. Let's look at it again. So here, we're in that single collar tie. I roll over, catch, step through, and finish. When we think about these techniques, let's go right back to the ending point of Waki Gatame. Now, I want to have his shoulder lower than his hand. This is a mistake my students make a lot when we're doing these combative techniques. That the hand is lower, it's me easier for him to defend. I want to start raising that hand and sinking my level into him. There's actually a sliding version I'll do. I'm going to be nice because this is actually can be quite vicious if I do it fast. So same thing happens. I rotate over, I catch that wrist, and then as this leg is coming through, I think about sitting to my hip into him, and you can see I'm trying to be very, very careful because when we do this, he's just done. In fact, one of my old students did this years and years ago at my old school, and I was like, oh, please stop, because the guy he was doing to did not know how to fall and receive it properly, and it was going bad quickly. It can be pulled off during rolling, regular rolling, but you have to be very aware the difference. We're trying to break the arm, not submit the arm, so when you do that, the engagement changes. You need to be very respectful to your training partner. So one more time on that one. We're here, rotate over, sliding in, and then sinking into that Waki Gatame. From that same 2-on-1 entrance we just did, we're now gonna add what happens when he starts bending the arm and basically countering out of our attack. So we are here, we hit that 2-on-1, and then I feel like I can't maybe get his wrist, or he's really strong. I'm gonna keep this, grab his wrist, and then make a figure 4 grip, okay? And then I'm gonna think about back, I'm gonna spin you a little bit. I'm gonna back step this leg out, boom, spin you again. And then I'm gonna think about, basically, if you look, I'm almost an Americano, we call Ude Garami. I'm gonna steer his hand to the ground. That's gonna drop him. And then my hand will flex to the wrist, and we basically get this dirty little wrist lock at the end. So again, we're here, come over, boom. He bends the arm, I let go of my initial hand that was underneath, chain it to on top, figure 4 grip, spin him down, and then finish with that wrist break at the end. So we're here, boom, over, he bends, and finish. You'll notice that, let's do that one really smooth again, that I'm continuing my movement, I'm continuing my kazushi the whole time, so that he is just always having to catch up to me. The last one we're gonna do off that 2-on-1 is Kote Gaeshi. Again, if you've been in this channel for a while, or if you're new to the channel, we talk about Aiki-Jitsu sometimes, or wrist locks. Not to be confused with Aikido. Aiki-Jitsu or Aiki-Jitsu is more the breaking component, all right? So these techniques are very powerful, but I'm gonna be brutally honest with you, they take time, all right? Joint locks are not an easy thing to master. I've been doing jiu-jitsu well over 25 years, 30 years in the martial arts, and I feel like only in the past maybe 10 years that I really start feeling I have confidence in my Aiki, when that took a long time for me to develop. So, but it is a great drill. You should learn it, I think, if you are interested in the breaking components of the jiu-jitsu arts, not just the sport components. Okay, so we're here, we got our 2-on-1, boom. Now, similar to before, I feel like maybe he was strong, or I just want to continue on attack the wrist. I'm gonna step forward again, boom, and then get a hold of this wrist, similar to that Waki Gatame. Maybe now I feel him bending, but I have this like, almost like a cupping grip around his hand. Then I back step his leg out and fold my elbow over his elbow while pinning his hand to my center line. Once that happens, I add rotation and drop him to the ground, keeping the box of Kote Gaeshi, and then we're kneeling on the elbow to finish. Now, Leon is letting me finish this technique, but a lot of times what happens when you do this technique, it tends to be a little bit more of a scramble at the end. He'll try to twist out of it. As you get better Aiki control, you kind of flow them, or just fucking hit them, plain and simple. But you know, we are talking pure combat, and I'm being very nice to Leon. I'm going slow when I do this technique, so I do not break his wrist. Can you do a high fall off this?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I add a little speed, if you saw me, I just asked him to make sure he knows I'm gonna add speed now, and that he'll do a proper fall so he doesn't break his wrist. So same thing again, we're here, boom, I'm on it. and then I'm gonna turn back in and just drop it as quick as I can. Now you see how he's already started turning this way. I can drag him out and then just change the angle and submit him another way too. So as you get used to these 2-on-1 controls, they become very dynamic. And that's what I almost find sexy about Aiki Jitsu, is that once you learn to master how to bend and control, twist the wrist, it starts, you know, the wrist to the elbow, to the shoulder, to the hip, it becomes a very, very powerful art. One more time, let's go this way. So here, boom, I come over, I walk it in, spin, and drop, and follow it down for our finish. When we get to the 2-on-1 jiu-jitsu versions, or the Japanese jiu-jitsu versions, we're gonna talk about making the figure 4 grip. And this is also a great way, when you have the Russian, to do some cool throws. So, back to the beginning, I'm gonna hit my pinch shrug catch, I'm in my Russian, spin him. Now, I'm gonna get my own hands together. So, with this wrist control, I take the hand that's underneath, grab my own wrist. Now I'm gonna punch it to his hip. As I punch it to his hip, I'm gonna bring my feet together. And then as I bring my feet together, I'm gonna fall to my left hip. Ooh, we headbutt each other really nicely in there. For all the people that think you're gonna crack your head when you're doing jiu-jitsu, it doesn't happen. We just bang heads a little bit. Now, when I wanna get on top, a little slick, I leave this hand on, take this hand off, pin it to the ground, and now I'm able to start building into side control and going from there. So, well, let's bring it over here. We're here again. Boom, boom. Oops. And make that grip. Sit and spin. Leon drops over, pin it to the ground, and I'm coming on top for side control. If you guys are interested in these sport versus street, or sport versus Japanese Jiu-Jitsu arts, this is a big part of our focus on this channel and TRITAC martial arts overall. So I would love if you give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a comment. We love interacting with you. If you want to go even deeper, we have our TRITAC training community here on YouTube, as well as hub.tritacmartialarts.com, and I'd love to see you there.